1988, here we come. Alright everybody, like I just said a moment ago, we're going all the way back to 1988 to look at a little movie that really gets forgotten about, really gets left behind in the annals of time, and never gets enough light shine on it. We're talking about The Seventh Sign. Before we go any further, before we dig into this gem anymore, once and again, and as always, to the trailer.
The time is coming.
I can't wait. 2 months to go.
The signs are beginning.
Found this. It's incredible.
The seals are breaking. The day is approaching.
Hello.
Hi.
The mystery is unfolding.
I need to know what this says. I need to know what language it is.
It's about the apocalypse.
Your baby's due in February, the 29th.
How'd you know that?
There's a whole chain of signs, like a countdown. The Bible's filled with them.
One of the signs has to be stopped.
What time is this, Quinn? Do you know how?
It's time for you to know, Abby.
Stay away!
There's nothing you can do. You can't stop it.
Show me you have hope, Abby.
Demi Moore in The Seventh Sign.
Okay, this motion picture was directed by Schultz. Name doesn't jump out at you? Don't feel bad. He didn't really do that much stuff that you're going to remember. Anyway, he did things like Goodbye Paradise, Careful He Might Hear You, and TV shows, you know, Adventures of the Young Indiana Jones, Run from Morning, The 7 Ages of Man. So really, nothing on his resume that's going to smack you in the face, and you probably never heard him before anyway. So let's keep going. All right, playing Abby, Demi Moore. Used to be a pretty big power player at one point in her career. Let's go. We're talking about she was in stuff like Blame It on Rio, and St. Elmo's Fire, and Nothing But Trouble, and One Crazy Summer, and Wisdom, and A Few Good Men, and Indecent Proposal, and Striptease, and G.I. Jane, and that Charlie's Angels flick. But, let's be honest, she's really going to be most remembered for that movie with Patrick Swayze, Ghost. That was probably the biggest thing ever on her resume, just the way it goes. Oh, you know, she used to be on General Hospital way back in the day. Way back in the day. I remember that. My grandmother used to love that show. Whatever, but she was there, playing Russell, the one and only Michael Biehn. Let's make some waves. We're talking about he has been in stuff like Planet's Terror, The Rock, The Abyss, K2, and Tombstone, and Crash, and Jade, and Navy SEALs, The Fan. But let's stop bullshitting each other. He will be always remembered for 2 motion pictures. The Terminator. I'm waiting for you to say it. Aliens. Just the way it is. Playing David. / Jesus, Son of God. Whatever. We'll get all that down later. The one and only Jürgen Prochnow. Oh my God, man. We're talking, he's really the reason I love this motion picture. Let's go. We're talking about he has been in little gems like Dune, and Judge Dredd, and In the Mouth of Madness, and The English Patient, and The Replacement Killers, which you know I've already reviewed. I love that movie. And Da Vinci Code, and Wing Commander, and Air Force One, and Beverly Hills Cop 2, and The Keep, and most importantly, easily, phenomenally, his greatest work, Das Boot. Check that motion picture out. My God, check that motion picture out. Playing Father Lucci / Cartaphilus, or whatever the hell he pronounced his name. Whatever. Peter Friedman. Might not know the name, but you'll remember the face. Anyway, he's been in things like Christmas Evil, and Prince of the City, if anybody remembers that from way back when. And Single White Female. That's probably where he's going to really jog your mind. And I'm Not Rappaport, and Freedom Land, and The Messenger, and A Paycheck, and TV shit. You know, I mean, The Affair, Brooklyn Bridge, Law and Order, NYPD Blue. So his face will be one you remember, even if the name doesn't jump out at you. Playing Avi, Manny Jacobs. He was in stuff like, My Father, the Hero, and he popped up on TV, like Kate and Allie and those after-school specials. But his career was very, very short. He came, he went, no idea where he is now, but he was in this, and hey, can't knock that shit. Playing Jimmy, the Word of God killer. John Taylor. Now he popped up in stuff like, he was in The Ringers, which you're really going to remember him the most for, and he was in another thing called Dorian Blues, but didn't really act in a lot of motion pictures. He had Down syndrome, but was great in this motion picture. God bless the dude for overcoming those kind of adversities. He was in this, he's in a couple other things. Hey, can't knock that shit at all. Good for him. And there's other faces that are going to come and go in this motion picture that you're going to remember, you're going to recognize. We'll talk about people like Lee Garlington, and of course she was in stuff like Cobra and Psycho 2, and Arnold Johnson, who was in like Shaft and Menace to Society, and Michael Laskin, he was in like 21 Jump Street and Knots Landing, and Ian Buchanan, basically a soap opera guy. I mean, he popped up in every soap opera from Days of Our Lives to General Hospital, and I think about 13 or 14 other ones. He's just all over the goddamn place. So they're all in this thing, they pop up, you're going to recognize their faces. They might not be in it a lot, but they're in it. That's all you need to know. Okay, everybody, we're going to do this in 90 seconds or less. Keep it short, keep it fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving so we can get to where we would much rather be, the summation. You got this guy. He's basically just showing up in places and walking around, and wherever he shows up and wherever he walks around, weird shit takes place. He walks up to the ocean, he cracks open this seal with this piece of paper behind it, all the fish die. He goes out to the desert, cracks open a seal, this town gets frozen in ice. He goes to this other place, he cracks open a seal, and all these people, the river turned to blood, and blah, 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 blah. It is what it is. You get the idea. In the meantime, you got Abby, and you got Russell. Abby's about to have a baby. She lost her last baby, and that made her kind of suicidal. She's carrying some scars on her wrist as a reminder from the stress she went through at that moment in time. Her husband, Russell, he's a lawyer. He's a decent guy. He's trying to help out this kid, Jimmy, the Word of God killer, who apparently burnt his parents alive because he found out they were brother and sister. It's a long story. Anyway, one day, they get a guy who inquires about the apartment they have above the garage. It just turns out to be it's that same guy walking around making bad shit happen every time he breaks open one of those little sealed letters. Go figure. In the midst of this, you got this other guy. He's a priest. He's following this dude around, examining everything and everywhere that he goes, trying to figure out if this guy is really bringing about the apocalypse, giving off the signs from the Bible that the end days are coming. Well, obviously, there's some shit going down. But obviously, he lies to all his superiors and says, no, nothing's going on, because he's got his own angle in this. We'll get to that in a moment. As the story unfolds, you find out that Abby is carrying the last baby on Earth, or aka the first baby who's going to be born without a soul, bringing about the end of mankind. You find out that the priest following him around is really basically immortal for the last couple of thousand years, cursed to walk planet Earth because at one time or another he struck David in the face. David, who just happens to turn out to be the Son of God. He came before as the lamb. He's here this time as the lion, delivering all of God's 7 signs to bring about the apocalypse so God can have his day of wrath and judgment upon all of mankind. That's basically the gist of the motion picture, everybody. That's the idea to get you where we are. There's a lot going on. It's a little bit convoluted, but Jesus has come back. He's bringing the 7 signs so that the world can end. Abby's baby is the thing that can make it happen or break it from happening. Who knows? Not going to give it all away. That's what it is. That's where we are. Let's get moving to the summation. Okay, everybody. Does the 7th sign work? Yeah, it works. Is it a perfect motion picture? No, there's things they could have done to improve it. Is it a great motion picture? No, there's little flaws here and there, but is it a solid motion picture that's definitely worth watching and definitely entertaining for an hour and 35 minutes? Most definitely. Let's get into why. First, the directing. The directing is good. I'm not saying it's great, but it's good. It's actually strangely, and we'll get more into this later, shot very stylistically, very almost noir-like. You know what I mean? Very specific lighting, very specific atmosphere. So it's pretty, it's good looking, it does its job. I'm going to give my critique of maybe that job was too much later on, but the motion picture looks good. That's all that really counts. The writing, hey, the lines everybody says is good. That's all you need to know. Everybody says shit that sounds believable or feels believable. And the intermixing of all the religious stuff here, there, and everywhere really lends some weight to it. It really lends some vibe to it. So, the writing's cool. Can't knock that. And, of course, the acting. The acting's good. I mean, come on. You got Jürgen in it. He's good in everything he does. Just the way I think. Just the way I view it. Michael Biehn carries his weight. Demi Moore is good. There's times it comes off a little bit stiff and forced, but overall she does good. Everybody in this carried their weight and delivered, so the acting, not a problem. Now about The Seventh Sign. It's one of those motion pictures that is really cool because it's got a cool little subject line. It's got a cool little story. It's got this very biblical thing that we all know, or at least used to know back in the day, with the stories from the Bible and the stories of Revelation, all that kind of stuff. So all of that being interwoven into a modern day setting with the returning form of Jesus, Son of God, coming into, I think they're in California, wherever the hell they are, is really interesting, really fun to watch, and I like the way they play it out. Jürgen plays the character awesome, by the way, because he's not a happy Jesus. He's not exactly a forgiving Jesus. He is really, in the beginning, an ominous kind of guy, a dark figure, intimidating, scary, kind of off-putting. But then as it goes on, you realize he's just more disgusted with man, upset with man, hurt with man, than he is angry. And that lends a lot of weight to the character. The character that he plays in this motion picture is really well-rounded. I don't know how else to put it than that. One of the things that's cool about The Seventh Sign also is that you always feel like it's a movie that's punching above its weight class, if you know what I'm talking about. There's not that much going on in it. You can tell this isn't something that feels like this big, giant production. In the end of the motion picture, especially like the last 20 minutes, when all hell is breaking loose and the world's basically plumbed and glued and there's earthquakes and buildings falling, you never really see it. It's kind of all just implied. You see some wind, you see some rain, you see the utter ridiculousness of the hospital scene at the end, whatever. That's all you see. It's like one set that starts to fall apart, and a very small set at that. So it doesn't have that big, epic, ridiculous, Michael Bay type of destruction going on, that kind of distraction or pulls you away from it. It's a very simple little movie that wants to suggest it's one of those motion pictures, or make you think it's one of those motion pictures, when really, it's not. And I guess really, therein lies the charm of The Sixth Sense. It's a very simple motion picture. It's a very straightforward motion picture. Yes, there's other lines and there's other people that come into it. And I'm not saying the story is straightforward, but the design of the motion picture is straightforward. It's not overbearingly loaded with special effects. It's not overbearingly loaded with this over-the-top crap. It's a simple story, kind of told in a simple way, and it's just done with old-school Hollywood know-how, old-school Hollywood vibe, and old-school Hollywood effects. Now, what are the problems with the motion picture? Well, I wish in a way the motion picture was longer. How could I put this? Sometimes you feel like they're kind of rifling through this thing at moments. Not that it's rushed, but it could have been more fleshed out. I mean, in the beginning, they go through two things with David breaking seals, and you feel like you're just hopping from place to place, and before you know it, you're hanging out with Demi Moore. And you don't really feel like there's giant setups to it, or there's great segues. It just feels like boom, boom, Demi Moore. And you're like, okay, here we go. I guess we're living with the normal people now, and seeing somebody living in a house is pregnant. And that's fine. But the movie, I think, could have been served a little better with a little bit more time devoted to the people's reactions to these crazy events, the people's reactions to this series of signs taking place that you are alluded to when you hear the priest talk to the other bishops or wherever they are, and you see things in newspaper clippings, but you just feel like they're being touched upon where they could have been expanded upon. Also, I think one of the things too is this motion picture was almost too pretty in scenes. I mean, there's scenes in the motion picture that you're like, wow, look at the lighting they put into here. Look at the mood they put into there. Look at the highlights they put around Demi Moore. Look at the bright lights they got at David's apartment. Look at the beautiful wind and all that kind of stuff scene they did when the priest kind of confesses to Demi Moore what he's really about, or that he's actually hoping for the end of days so that he can actually be set free from this curse. And it became very gothically stylized almost to a degree, where sometimes you could have felt like they could have backed off it and made it a little bit more raw, a little bit more Exorcist, a little bit more Amityville horror-ish, and it might have pulled some of the style off of it and made it a little bit more effective in those scenes. Not saying it doesn't work, not saying it's not good the way it is. I'm just saying that there was a couple little elements where I think they could have tweaked it and touched it and moved it to take a movie that's actually decent and a movie that's really enjoyable and actually made it more memorable, so that it would have stayed in people's minds and stayed in people's conscious a little bit more than it did. And if there's anything that probably could have been touched up more, it was probably the last ending scene of the movie where, let's face it, let's be honest, I won't tell you exactly what happens, but Demi Moore gives birth. And the scene in the hospital is so ridiculous, where they're having her pump out a baby and, you know, the floor is splitting in half and the walls are coming apart. You're almost like, oh my God, really? You're going to go that far? I mean, we get it. Everything's coming unglued outside. We don't get to see it, but everything's coming unglued outside. But you're kind of pushing it a little bit far here. I think they would actually just induce her so that she can't go into labor, move her to another room and call it a goddamn day, because you're not going to have somebody delivering a baby where the ceiling's coming in, the wall's splitting in half, and there's a chasm opening up in the floor of the hospital room. I'm just saying they kind of went a little bit far in that. All that being said, though, The Seventh Sign is a well done, well acted, stylistically directed, enjoyable motion picture that really suggests more is going on than actually is, but delivers on that really cool, stylized vibe that you get when you're talking about the supernatural religious world mixed in today's society. Get out there, check it out, give it a look. I think you'll enjoy it. You're not going to list it as one of the all-time greats, but you are probably going to walk away happy that you invested the time in it. Okay, everybody, once and again, and as always, be good, take care, stay out of trouble. Be kind to a stranger. Be good to your friends. But above all else, under no circumstances, at any time, ever, ever take any bullshit from anybody. See you soon.